A trade, a loss, and a clear path forward for the Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B, and boy, do we have a lot to discuss here on today's episode. First, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. It's available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And yesterday was a big day for Max Jones to the Edmonton Oilers. They promptly went out and played a pretty bad game against the Nashville Predators, laying out a clear path forward for Don Sweeney, as he should be continuing to sell some assets prior to the trade deadline on Friday. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. So yesterday began with a trade that was announced by the Boston Bruins. The team acquired defenseman Max Wanner, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2026 fourth-round pick from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for forward Trent Frederic and Max Jones. Now, the Bruins will retain 50% of Frederic's salary for the balance of this season, and the defenseman will report to the Providence Bruins. So, the Bruins are getting the second round pick, which is coming from the St. Louis Blues. It originally belonged to the Blues, went to the Oilers when they did not match the offer sheets for Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. And Dylan Holloway has broken out in a big way for the St. Louis Blues this season, as has Broberg for that matter. And the Oilers have been looking to add some secondary scoring, some toughness, some experience for the playoffs all season long, and they did so here by acquiring Trent Frederic. 27 years old, 57 games with Boston this season, only 8 goals and 7 assists and for 15 points. Now, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't always a Trent Frederic guy. He was drafted in the first round back in 2016, 29th overall. Did not really hit as a first-round pick. Early on, it seemed as though his identity was that toughness, that grit, that, face punching. He did develop into a pretty reliable third-line player, scorer, versatility he brought to the table by being able to play center, wing, and, that Oceans line back a couple years ago was pretty effective with Frederic, Charlie Coyle, and Craig Smith. And he had some good moments, especially alongside Charlie Coyle, where he really hit his groove. This season, a lot was expected of him with the departure of Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, a pending unrestricted free agent. So it was a contract year, and he quite simply fumbled the ball by not really stepping up. Again, only 8 goals and 7 assists. A couple of things made it clear that Frederic wasn't in Boston's long-term plans. There was the acquisition of Mark Kastelik, who's younger, plays a similar role, and had been more effective this season when he's in the lineup, both on the physical side of things, but also chipping in offensively. Plus, Frederic, again, he's an unrestricted free agent this summer, and it really seemed as though he and the Bruins were not on the same page in terms of extending their relationship, and I would not be shocked at all if we see Trent Frederic next season playing for Jim Montgomery in St. Louis for his hometown Blues. Unless, of course, he really pops in Edmonton and they go on to win a Stanley Cup and they think that it's worth trying to make that a fit. But at the end of the day, it wasn't going to be a long-term relationship here between Trent Frederic and the Boston Bruins. That became pretty clear. I think he was a pretty popular guy in the room. You saw Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, David Pastrnak, among others, talking about how much they will miss Trent Frederic. I do wish him all the best. Again, I wasn't a huge Frederic guy. I did come around on him over the past couple seasons when he developed into a more consistent scorer, kind of balancing out his toughness with his puck responsibility. But at the end of the day, yeah, it was just a move that could not be made by Don Sweeney, considering his pending unrestricted free agent status and not wanting to lose him for nothing on the open market. And to get a second-round pick, as well as a fourth-round pick for Frederic and for Max Jones, who's also going to Edmonton. He was signed this past summer as a free agent, 24th overall pick in 2016, 5 picks before Trent Frederic. The Oilers getting some depth. The Bruins getting a second-round pick. We don't need another reason to root against the St. Louis Blues, but every loss they pile up will make that pick even higher. So go anyone who's playing the Blues. Another fourth-round pick in 2026. So the Bruins starting to stockpile some picks here. And lest you think, it's a second-round pick, Sweeney and company, you're just going to fumble that, whatever. Mason Lohrei and Matt, their recent second-round picks that this team has made, and both of those two are, in my mind anyway, seen as key pieces for this club moving forward. So a second-round pick for a guy who likely wasn't going to re-sign, and a fourth for Jones, who was not really playing that much anyways, only 7 games with the Bruins this season. Nice little bit of there for Don Sweeney. Now, Wanner, 21 years old. He's been playing with the Bakersfield Condors this season. 1 goal, 1 assist. It was a 7th-round pick in 2021. And notably, his last year of junior hockey was interrupted due to a suspension for some sort of infraction that's not really clear. He was one of 4 players suspended for 17 games for an off-ice incident in 2023 when he was playing for the Moose Jaw Warriors. Details weren't released. It was deemed non-criminal, but the general manager and coach were both suspended 5 games for the same incident, and the team was fined $25,000. So a bit of a checkered history there for Wanner. I wouldn't expect him to be really on the radar for playing time with this team anytime soon. 7th-round pick, depth defenseman. He'll report to Providence. But interesting to see the Bruins add a guy with a bit of a checkered past, especially considering what happened just a couple years ago when they decided to sign that unrestricted free agent defenseman who had an even more checkered past. So make of that what you will. The big storyline here, though, is the Bruins starting the selling process, getting a second-round pick, which they did not have this season because of the trade a couple years ago with the Washington Capitals. They own Boston's second-round pick this season for the Garnet Hathaway, Dmitry Orlov trade. The Bruins now getting a pick via the St. Louis Blues. And again, hopefully that's as high as possible, as the Blues still kind of in the Western Conference playoff mix under Jim Montgomery. What's next? Well, there could be some more trades coming up. We'll discuss that later on in the podcast. But As the podcast continues, we'll touch on last night's fairly disastrous effort against the Nashville Predators and how it further signals the Bruins need to remain in sell mode. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, following that trade yesterday, the Bruins went out and played the Nashville Predators and pretty much stunk out the joint. Now, the trade of Trent Frederic and Max Jones didn't really impact last night's lineup because Jones hadn't been playing lately, and our boy Frederic is out with an injury. And of course, perhaps that kind of brought his value still to get a second round pick. He is going to be back healthy for the playoffs, so I don't think that was a huge sticking point. Now, you have to understand how bad the Nashville Predators have been this season to fully appreciate what happened last night. The Predators 22, 32, and 7 this season. They had scored a total of 7 goals in their past 5 games, in which they had gone 1-4. And then they come into Boston and drop 6 goals on the Bruins. Steven Stamkos had a goal and 2 assists. He had not recorded a point in 13 games. Ryan O'Reilly, 2 goals and an assist. The Predators are one of few teams in the NHL who are more disappointing than the Boston Bruins this season. They had a fantastic year last year, a playoff team. Things looked great under Andrew Brunette, their head coach, and their new GM, Barry Trotz. A lot was expected of them this season after signing Stamkos, after adding Jonathan Marchessault. It has been a very disappointing season. Perhaps the New York Rangers were in that category as well, except for the fact that they're now in a playoff spot once again. The Bruins were expected to be in the playoff mix. The Predators were expected to as well. Both teams 6 on the Bruins, a team that still technically in the playoff race and needed this game if they were going to keep any hopes alive. Just a completely disappointing effort for the Boston Bruins and very sloppy with the puck. I think it was the first or second goal for the Predators, just a disastrous giveaway from Pavel Zacha. And it just, you can blame Jeremy Swayman all you want for not making big saves, but he is not getting much support out there. The Bruins, of course, without Charlie McAvoy, without Hampus Lindholm, you miss those two guys. It's going to show up on the scoreboard in a negative way. And that it did last night. Like, the Bruins were just flat out bad in all zones. And the Predators took advantage of it, and now they are feeling a bit better about themselves. Still not going to make the playoffs, and the Bruins' chances took a hit as well. Interim head coach Joe Sacco said, "We didn't execute that well tonight." That is the understatement of the year. When you look at some of the plays the Bruins made with the puck, he thought that areas we expect to be better in, we weren't. And again, the Bruins were just pretty bad all around in last night's game against the Predators, allowing a team that has been disappointing all season long, struggling to score, come in and look like a team to be reckoned with in the Western Conference, which they are most decidedly not. And yeah, just dominated pretty much all night long. They did go jump out to a 1-0 lead, but then it was pretty much all Nashville from there. The Bruins were able to tie things up 2-2 thanks to a Jordan Osterley goal, his first as a Bruin. David Pastrnak getting the assist to extend his home point streak. Then they brought it to 3-3 even in the third period with Morgan Geekie scoring his 20th of the season from Zacha and Pastrnak. But then the Bruins just could not hold on. Marchessault, O'Reilly, and then Mark Jankowski scoring to seal it to pull away. This was a very winnable game for the Boston Bruins. It was a game that they needed to win if they wanted to stay alive in the playoff race, and you just can't afford to drop these games similar to the one last week against the Anaheim Ducks. Just games you cannot lose if you want to be in the playoff mix, and it just reinforces the reality that this isn't a playoff team. Bad loss for the Bruins. Some boos raining down from the stands, justifiably so. There were some fire Sweeney chants. There is a lot of discontent among the fan base right now. People questioning Jeremy Swayman's contract. Not sure I'm really on board with that, but also, yeah, just some boos and discontent overall with the state of this team. Puck management was terrible. Too many turnovers, giving the puck away in the defensive zone, which is just unacceptable. And while the Bruins were able to tie the game a couple times to try to build some momentum, they gave it away each and every time, and mismanagement of the puck was leading to some really crazy breakdowns from which they could not recover. Charlie Coyle afterwards said they were just not ready to go. Perhaps that was some emotion from the Frederic trade trickling into the game. You know, these kind of things do affect the players. He said he didn't have a lot of answers. A lot of parts of their game that aren't up to par right now. Big moments that can make a difference. They have to take ownership of that no matter what's going on in the game, whatever whistle happens, especially after getting a goal. We need to bring energy and focus and come right back at it and show some life. And we didn't. The goals they scored, tying it in a tight game, could have grabbed the momentum. Pastrnak echoed, went the other way. Not the first time this season, and it's definitely a momentum killer. So that was the common theme last night for the Bruins. It's not looking too good for interim head coach Joe Sacco to retain that moniker. It's not looking good for some guys who are on the bubble in terms of trade deadline movement. And it's also questionable as to whether Don Sweeney should be leading this team into the future. We'll touch on all of that discuss what's next for this club this week here as the podcast continues. So the Bruins have one game remaining before the trade deadline. One domino has already fallen with Trent Frederic and Max Jones being traded to the Edmonton Oilers. I would be very surprised if that's all we see from Bruins management in terms of movement. They're giving some young guys a shot here. I saw it suggested they should protect everybody. Morgan Geekie took a puck off the foot. He's a chance or a candidate to be moved. Georgi Merkulov has come up, working hard, having some good chances, though no goals through his first 10 games of his career. And he wants to contribute offensively. I think he's looked pretty good overall, but he needs to put the puck in the net if he wants to take advantage of this opportunity. Hopefully he can get it going. Maybe they give Fabian Lysell a shot. He is trying to display the defensive side of his game. He did block 4 shots against Pittsburgh. That's something that the Bruins value in their players, of course. Fabian Lysell a bit less so in terms of having that defensive aspect to his game. But you need to see what they have in some of these guys, and this is a perfect opportunity right now to do some Merkulov's here, call up Lysell, see what you have with these guys down the stretch here in the last 20, 15 games of the season. And opportunities could be created, of course, by making some more moves. We talked the other day about Brandon Carlo drawing interest from the Calgary Flames. I think Charlie Coyle could generate a lot of interest as teams look to add some center depth. Morgan Geekie is a guy that, again, scored last night, hitting 20 goals for the first time in his career. He would be highly coveted in the trade market right now. This is a perfect opportunity for the Bruins to write this season off and know that they still have some important pieces set for next year and to add a bunch of picks, perhaps some prospects to the pipeline to grow for the future. If they could get another first this year, that would be fantastic. If they could pick up some other bigger prospects other than Wanner, that would be great. And if you don't think you're going to reach a deal with Morgan Geekie, maybe even Brad Marchand, who is out week to week right now, so that could limit his tradability. Although if he's going to be back for the playoffs, teams could LTIR him and perhaps use that space, which could make him even more valuable. I would like to see a contract extension there in the next couple of days to end that speculation and to make it known that he will be here for the next couple of years. Those are some of the guys that are on the radar right now for trades. Justin Brazeau among that group as well. Still 2 days and 5 hours as I record this. A lot of action when it comes to the Boston Bruins. In terms of trade reports, rumors, you're going to want to keep it locked on Boston Bruins on your favorite podcast app, on the YouTube for shorts, Instagram for reels. All the very latest will be posted there as it breaks. The Bruins do play tomorrow night against the Carolina Hurricanes. And if we're looking at the standings here right now, it's pretty clear the Bruins, they have very few games remaining and too much ground to make up here in the wild card race. They're now only, to their credit, only 2 points out of the second wild card spot, but it's the games remaining that really are a factor here. The Bruins have played 63 games, teams they're chasing, including Canadians, who are 1 point up, the Ottawa Senators, who are 1 point up, the Red Wings, 2 points up, the Rangers, who are in that second wild card, fewer games remaining than these teams. 3 in the case of the Senators and 2 in the case of the Red Wings and Canadians. If you go by point percentage, the Bruins right now are 16, 15, 13th in the Eastern Conference in terms of point percentage, behind the Islanders, the Canadians, the Red Wings, Rangers, Senators, Blue Jackets, all of whom are more in the playoff race. And it's interesting now, I talk about goal differential a lot to mark the top teams. Right now, the playoff teams in the Eastern Conference are the ones with positive goal differentials. Those are the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. The Senators, Red Wings are very close, but they are at negative goal differentials right now. If you look at the Bruins, they are 15th in the East in goal differential, 13th in point percentage. It's pretty much lights out for this team at this moment, although you never know. They could squeak in. Never know what happens in the playoffs, but I mean, let's be honest, it's not looking good. If you're behind the Canadians, who are technically still building, behind the Islanders, who it's not looking good for you at this time. And their next game is against Carolina. They play eight more times on the road this season where they've been dreadful. So it really is time to keep selling and get some assets here for the future. That's it for today's episode, my friends. Farewell, Trent Frederic, Max Jones. We wish you the best in Edmonton and wherever your hockey future takes you. Thank you for some memorable moments, especially in the case of Frederic. It's too bad it didn't work out here in Boston, but maybe, who knows, could be lifting a cup here in a couple months alongside Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. We'll see what else is on the move. You're going to want to check out Locked On NHL next for league-wide news from our local experts. That's available on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Have a great Wednesday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.